But I'll dive in here first with a value player. Again, this player I think belongs in the first round. He just might go a little bit lower because you're going to have a big run of quarterbacks, obviously at the top, maybe 5 or 6 in the first round. We know there are going to be at least 3 great receivers taken early. We could see as many as 6 or 7 receivers, all these offensive tackles. This is a long-winded way of saying, Mel, the Darius Robinson is going to probably go lower than I believe he should go based off of the evaluation of the player, the defensive end from Missouri who transformed his body and his game, formerly a defensive tackle with the Tigers, spent his last year playing a lot on the edge, but also still has the positional versatility to be a 5 technique, a 3 technique. He can line up over the center and rush the passer as a nose tackle as well, Mel. The positional versatility is so good for Darius Robinson. And while the combine did not blow you away with the 4.96 40, who cares? That's not his game, right? If that's what you're expecting from Darius Robinson, you've evaluated the wrong Robinson. You've been watching Chop Robinson instead, who can absolutely fly.
Right.
But Darius Robinson, a powerful, instinctive, relentless pass rusher who, if he goes somewhere in the late 20s, Mel, to me, feels like one of the best values in all of round one.
Yeah, you mentioned the scheme versatility. I think 3 technique, you can move him around. He's got to figure out, he is kind of a tweener. You got to figure out where you're going to maximize that ability. And the Detroit Lions would like interior pressure. They want an outside pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchins. It'll be interesting to see Arizona, Detroit, teams like that in the late first round. I'm with you. The pro day, he said, hey, I'm going to come back and do a lot better. Hey, look at the bench press numbers went skyrocketed. And he said it. And I like guys that say it and deliver. And Darius Robinson said it, and then he delivered. And he did have a productive season, and he does have the scheme versatility to be a late one. So I'm with you, Phil. I think he is going somewhere between, say, 26 and 32.
Okay, so let's go from day one to probably every other player that we mentioned, Mel, is going to be day 2, day 3, maybe even undrafted in the case of a couple of them. But I think all the guys we have on our list will be drafted. Let's go to a tight end, Mel, and you and I have talked about this tight end class endlessly. It's not great. It's Brock Bowers and then a lot of other players. But who is a player that you think deserves a bit more attention?
I cannot believe, and it's surprising. I always go through this process the last 3 months since the season. I haven't heard Cade Stover's name mentioned much. I mean, yeah. I feel I just haven't heard it. He's been quiet in terms of the overall chatter, right, that we hear. And we're all talking different tight ends and whatever. Ben Sinnott seems to be red hot right now, right, as a second-round pick. Great, he's a heck of a player. But nobody's talking Cade. Cade was a linebacker, started a game, did a lot coming. He was a defensive guy with a defensive mentality. Moves to tight end, 77 catches, 10 touchdowns over the last couple of years. So he didn't have C.J. Stroud. He had Kyle McCord, who's now at Syracuse. And he ran 4.65 at 6'4", 247 pounds, almost 250. He's tough. He's intense. He caught the ball well. He battled after the catch, blocking. Cade Stover is just a good football player. And if I can get him, Phil, give me a round. Where would you guess right now Cade Stover goes?
I think he goes somewhere late 3rd to late 4th. That's my guess. It's somewhere in that 30.
If he's sitting there in day 3 and you're needing a guy for the 4th round who's going to come in and he's going to give you the attitude, the desire, the want to, and also produced. You talk about a guy averaged almost 12.5, 13 yards a catch with, like I say, didn't have C.J. Stroud, had Kyle McCord. To me, I think Cade Stover is that underpublicized tight end that's going to play a long time in the NFL.
There are a lot of those underpublicized tight ends. I've talked about my guy, Tanner McLaughlin, a lot from Arizona. Better athlete, inferior blocker to Cade Stover. I think he's a better athlete, at least. Has so much pass-catching upside. Great story coming from Southern Utah to University of Arizona as basically a preferred walk-on, Mel. He broke Gronk's records for most career catches by a tight end at Arizona. So that right there has my attention. But I think a lot of them could end up hearing their name called somewhere between picks 90 and maybe 140 or so. Obviously, the rounds get a bit bigger as we get into round 3 and beyond with those compensatory picks. All right, so you went with one Ohio State player. I'll go with another one. Michael Hall Jr., defensive tackle from Ohio State. Again, this defensive tackle class is kind of a take your pick, right? Byron Murphy II, we think, is probably going to be the first one taken, and maybe by a decent amount of picks, right? He might be 10, 15, 20 picks higher than the next defensive tackle. Maybe that's Johnny Newton. Maybe it's Mason Smith. Maybe it's somebody else. But Michael Hall Jr. should not be overlooked, Mal. He had a sack and a half last year. All right, that number is not going to blow you away by any stretch. But with Michael Hall Jr., you're betting on a player whose disruption was consistent. Now he's smaller. He's under 200. He's under 300 pounds, I should say. He's a guy that, is going to have his moments where offensive linemen get the best of him. But Michael Hall Jr., to me, one of my favorite interior disruptors. And we're seeing more and more teams these days, Mel, prioritize guys that live behind the line of scrimmage amongst defensive linemen. We don't have as many guys who are sitting there holding the point of attack. I was talking about how, 15 years ago, Casey Hampton, a nose tackle, drafted out of University of Texas, right, Mel? Like that role, that play, he was an awesome player, by the way. But the number of teams that are saying, we're just looking for a guy that can basically take up space for our linebackers and other defensive linemen to do work, that role has been diminished in the NFL. So guys like Michael Hall Jr. that can live behind the line of scrimmage, I think are way more valuable.
Adapt or die, right? That's what they said when Moneyball, Billy Beane, I think, said on Moneyball with Brad Pitt, right? Adapt or die. Yeah. Bottom line is, field. You think about Gilbert Brown. You mentioned Casey Hampton. I go to right now, T'Vondre Sweat. My guy, I like T'Vondre. Right? T'Vondre was a ball player. I think he penetration because he's not Paul pushed around against the run. He's going to be a problem. I have an issue with that at level, but he's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be a guy with the pass happy ways of the NFL at times. He's a guy closing out the first half, right? Well, you got to close it out second half, and you got to be able to get after the quarterback. Those are the guys that attract attention in the second round, right? With Hall, latest third, or a guy like T'Vondre Sweat who drops into the late day 2, early day 3. So it's going to be interesting to see where those guys come off the board who are, I think, suited for the way the game's played today.
All right, let's keep moving here, Mel, and a player that I don't know how much we've talked about him. I know our guy Matt Miller does love him. I think he had him mocked in the second round during one of his mock drafts. That's Mason McCormick from South Dakota State. What do you like about his game?
What do offensive line coaches tell you they have to have in a player, right? You got to be smart, and you got to be tough, and you got to be able to be prevent some versatility, present that to an offensive line coach coming out of South Dakota State, where you were a 4-year starter, you played forever, and you're mean, you got nasty, you could be center, but he was a left guard his whole career. Mason McCormick, I think he gets to that second level, he can pull. I tell you that he has the qualifications. He has the attitude, the approach that offensive line coach will say, give me that guy. I can do something with him. Mason McCormick, and I like these South Dakota State players. That's a team that won a lot of games field because they had some talent. Okay. They got some interesting guys. They're ballers. And these guys stayed field. They didn't go. They didn't leave South Dakota State. The loyalty to that program is phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, so I'm going to go to Isaiah. Yeah. You love Isaiah Adams so much, you can't get him out of your mind.
I know. I do love Isaiah Adams. Watch him go higher than you realize, though. Watch him go higher.
You're the guy, Isaiah Adams, Illinois offensive line. Hey, but this kid, Mason McCormick, if you can get him in the third round, fourth round area, something higher, bottom line is you're getting a plug and play guy who's going to give you the desire, the competitiveness, the play a long time. So I'm a big Mason McCormick fan. Have been. We highlight him, I think, back when we did our podcast, whenever, and I don't remember, field early January, mid-January, I don't even remember. But I'm going to go back to Mason McCormick so we don't forget about just how good he will be in the NFL.
Had a great combine as well. I know that people say, what does it matter how high an offensive lineman jumps, how far he jumps in the broad jump? But, Mel, it does underscore explosion, right? It shows that that guy has the ability to convert some of that explosive torque and power through his core into blocks. I had him a little lower on the big board. I think I could see him maybe landing late 4, early 5 in terms of rounds for Mason McCormick. But we'll see. Yeah, I plenty of experience. A 6-year player, 4-year starter at South Dakota State, back-to-back national champion. They haven't lost a game. I think they've 29 straight wins for South Dakota State. If memory serves, the last time they lost a game was to Iowa. It was like a 7-3 game at the beginning of the 2022 season. So a lot of winning in that South Dakota State program. Tucker Kraft obviously made a strong mark in his rookie season last year coming out of South Dakota State.